Greetings and welcome to my first tier list in Dawntrail, in which I want to share some of my experiences with class balancing, especially if you want to pick the best job for Savage. However, take into account that there might be changes on Tuesday, but I will keep you informed how these will affect the tier list with a follow-up video. For now, there are some significant balancing issues that some people have already talked about here on YouTube, Reddit or the forums, which needs to be addressed. But even with those massive differences, you can easily play any job, and DPS checks might not be as tight as they were in P8S, which was one of the times where balancing issues caused some jobs to underperform. Above that, as balancing mostly relies on DPS output, at least for the majority of DPS jobs, you can just check out the data on FFlogs to see where your job is standing. But with all that out of the way, let us start with tanks, where some balancing issues are present. Like many people have commented under my Dark Knight impression video, they highly anticipated much more DPS output compared to the other tanks, because even with the new Shadow Vigil cooldown, Dark Knight is one of the weakest tanks on self-sustain and mitigation, which should naturally make it a top performer in the DPS section, but it's just not there. Dark Knight performs worse than all other tanks while having less mitigation and a worse invuln. So if you like me actually enjoy the changes in Dawntrail, it is still underperforming, and I, as many others, would put it into B tier, where B tier can be seen as make it better please. Paladin, while I haven't played the new changes yet, still seems promising on its defensives with a massive barrier skill added on 92, and its AoE output being insanely powerful, as well as having new ranged capabilities with Imperator, but on the other hand falls short to Gunbreaker's new Great Nebula skill, because a higher HP pool is mostly better than a shield due to its scaling nature. And in regards to damage, it's quite comparable to Dark Knight, but with better defensives, even though Hallowed Ground still having a very long cooldown. Therefore I would put it into A. Gunbreaker though, leading the damage chart and taking all the new skills well into its kit, Lionheart becoming a fan favorite for many players, and according to the feedback of the community, it is better than ever before. And even the numbers place it into a good spot. That plus having the coolest combo on level 100 makes it an S choice in my opinion, because they also improve the boring AoE rotation. Which leads us to the star of the show, the Warrior, simply taking its Endwalker power into Dawntrail while receiving even more self-healing through Damnation, while wearing the crown on that department already. And while self-healing isn't that useful in high-end raiding, it still has the potentially best invuln due to its short cooldown. Then only slightly being beaten by the Gunbreaker's damage, this is crazy. And if we would be talking about dungeons, solo content and the like, Warrior would become a true god, and the strongest job of this game. Right now, all things considered, a clear S rank pick. The melee department is a bit simpler because most jobs received some mild changes in the form of additional OGCDs, and Viper mixed up the roster, delivering samurai-like ADPS that seems very promising. Yet if you take a look at this chart for the normal Arcadian raid, the differences are very small. Just Dragoon and Ninja fall a bit short, while Monk and Reaper, that also have a slightly better defensive toolkit, also seem to lead the chart mildly. Samurai and Viper have good synergy with Dancers and Bards because of their strong raw damage output, so I would place Viper, Samurai, Monk and Reaper into A+, and Dragoon and Ninja into A. You could argue about Monk because I have heard many people hating the changes and the miscalculations of Square Enix at the beginning, but right what this chart is telling us, Monk does perform after the last buffs at least. I mean, Reaper still has Death's Design being the one and only skill keeping me from maining it, which means you should absolutely make a decision according to how much you like playing these jobs instead of anything else. For some detailed distinguishment, you should definitely wait for Savage, where encounter timings and phase transitions might become more relevant, especially on the last boss. On the ranged physical department, balancing is quite decent, however the Machinist in its maximum performance looks a bit bad. But personally I have seen some Machinists dealing quite Viper-like damage. So this here seems to be something relevant only in absolute peak group optimization scenarios. Naturally, Machinist and how easy and comfortable you can push out a solid rotation with it is a very good choice for newcomers and those that don't want to produce record-worthy logs with their entire group. I would not dare to place it in B because as far as I've played it, the changes are awesome. And it still has the dismantle advantage that Bard and Dancer don't have. Therefore let us make an A- spot here because it's definitely not B. Dancer and Bard kinda fall into the same category, because their buffs to party or the other players applies nicely to those heavy powerlifter jobs like Viper, Samurai and Pictomancer, which can also be seen on the massive DPS lead of the Astrologer. The fact that Bard now can use its stance regardless of a target is also great benefit for flexibility, and Dancer always had that trait plus some additional group healing. and nice tools to navigate the encounter area when needed. You might want to put them in A, but when looking at the overall deviation towards the melee roster and Pictomancer, this gap is too wide, even though we mostly talk about role differences inside of a role. So still A- for all ranged physicals right now. Casters? Ooh boy, that is a section where some changes need to happen, and they need to happen soon. I mean, Black Mage led the charge nearly each tier in Endwalker, and even in the late Shadowbringers patches. Which always made sense due to how hard it is to execute a solid performance on anything that requires lots of movement, where fights have evolved into. And even though its flexibility and movement tools have been improved, it still doesn't have the toolkit of a Summoner, Red Mage or even Pictomancer. While it slightly outperforms Summoner and Red Mage in raw numbers, it is absolutely demolished by Pictomancer, where both of these jobs share the same fate of not having raising spells available that had always been a striking argument for Red Mage and Summoner being popular choices for proc raiding. Square definitely need to buff Black Mage's damage output, while having to nerf the Pictomancer, because it simply just has the better movement toolkit than a Black Mage in regards to its rotation and how you can perform it. But even above that, way too much damage, easily 10 to 15% more than a Summoner Red Mage while still offering a party buff, which is ridiculous. Red Mage and Summoner on the other hand feel very weak on raw damage numbers, but their buffs are among the most powerful and they still have the raising trait that no other job is offering. While Red Mage also has the best active self-heal among DPS jobs, which can keep you alive in certain situations, in casual parties for example, because as long as the Red Mage is on its feet, the party will be up in seconds. Therefore Pictomancer needs to be nerfed, Red Mage and Summoner may be slightly buffed and Black Mage massively buffed in their damage output. Right now Pictomancer in S+ tier, Red Mage and Summoner in A- and Black Mage in B. Apply this tier placement accordingly when they probably adjust the Pictomancer's damage and hopefully buff Black Mage on Tuesday. Healers are quite difficult to rate for me as I haven't played them much except for the Scholar. Yet according to the feedback of the community, the changes to Astro seem quite beneficial. The double life speed gives it a nice movement tool and 3 charges on Essential Dignity is simply awesome. However, shield healers have been in favor for quite a while now, where Sage is ramping up the heal game here, where Scholar might have earned the most powerful healing tool among all healers with its Seraphism. White Mage changes though also seem nice but far from game changing, so I would personally say that Sage, Scholar and Astro have the upper hand, but White Mage is still very easy to start and to learn healing with. So much like on the melee jobs, I guess you should be choosing here according to personal preference. My pick would be Sage, Astro and Scholar in A+, and White Mage in A. When I have finished leveling all jobs, I will give you more in-detail info of course. But for now, take this with a massive grain of salt, especially as Savage will turn these numbers under and over again. So stick around for the real tier list coming in the next couple of weeks. And while all jobs can clear content like always, the Pictomancer needs to be nerfed and Black Mage needs to be buffed, as well as the Dark Knight's defensive kit, or simply make it the heavy's hitting tank. Minor adjustments could improve the balancing and quality of life of some jobs, but apart from the caster exceptions and Dark Knight, balancing seems quite nice right now. But what do you think? Let me know your placement and share your thoughts to improve the meta in the comments section. Thank you for watching, and until next time, stay safe, stay healthy and keep loving Final Fantasy.